Great. Folks are piling in right on time. Morning, Russ, Risa,
Good
Neil.
morning.
Then we've got Alberto and Jonathan. Yeah, fantastic. Uh, and good, Scott. We won't have Nick until the second half of the call, but when Marcus is here, that's excellent. Let's give it a post roll. Go ahead.
Yeah, Drummond, I'm on three kid duty. One of them might throw up at any time. So if I come and go, just trying my best.
Totally understood. Never worry about that.
Well, I may be throwing up at any time either. So,
Oh no. Are you still gonna do
I can see
Utah,
some of
Scott?
that. I'm
Just
scared,
kidding.
Russ.
just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, we hope you are well. Hope everyone's well, especially as we, a bunch of us prepare to go to IW next week, where we'll be in the same rooms with everyone for 5 days if you're taking in the full length of everything. All right, let's give it one more minute for folks to roll in. And in the meantime, I would ask Jonathan to share the link to his latest issue of Platformocracy in the chat because I think he did a wonderful job of summarizing the 80-page first-person white paper. It was a bold task he took on to do that.
Yeah, I was aiming for 1,000 words. I think I got to 1,400, and somebody's better at statistics than me can determine if that's a passing grade.
Yeah, it's
Also happy to hear from anybody if anybody thinks I got anything wrong or, any feedback or anything else they want to see me write about and so on.
yeah, happy to do that. I have I'm sending a link out to a bunch of folks who sort of said, can you just summarize it? And so I was going to stick that in the announcements right now. Okay, it's it's before after we can get going here. 1 second, let me put this in here as a bullet. Okay. Just put the link there. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and get going. Let me oh, and Nikki's here already. That's great. Share my screen. Or this one right here. Very good. And then do the typical rearranging of windows here. Gotta get the chat up. All right, welcome everyone to October 15th meeting of the Decentralized Trust Graph Working Group. And as always, we will share our antitrust policy notice here. All Linux Foundation events take place under that policy. I hope everyone is proceeding to join either Trust ORP or the Decentralized Identity Foundation. This is a joint working group of both of them, and if you're for any reason not a member yet of one or the other, you're welcome to attend, but don't contribute anything substantial. It's our standard disclaimer. All right, let me quickly, I got to get up the participant list. Do we have any new members that would like to do an introduction if you haven't been to a meeting yet? I see a few new names. It's not required, but it is optional. Kevin, was that you putting your hand up?
Yeah, just real briefly, I met some folks, and maybe I'll meet y'all at the workshop next week. I'm in Texas. I'm doing a venture studio. It's going to be stewarding and midwifing tech projects and social tech projects, both. So this is for the the meta crisis and all that stuff, the regenerative project movement, coordination, project management, that kind of thing. And so I definitely have an interest in what we're doing here, the trust over IP and self-sovereign identities and data sovereignty. So that's me. But I come from a tech background and also PR background.
Tech and PR? I didn't know about the PR part of it.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I've made documentaries, and I love telling a story.
Ah, okay, that's very cool. He's also a filmmaker. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Let's see. Who else might be new today? Brian, are you joining us for the first time?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Welcome. Do you want to do a short introduction?
Uh, well, I'm not a member of either group yet. In fact, I should probably find out what those groups are so that I can join. But I come in through Quai. I've been involved in AI work for a very long time, and so these issues have long been of interest to me.
Fantastic.
I think Brian is actually playing his role down quite a lot. He introduced the notion of decentralized AI to Quai, and he was the one that put us onto this notion of Petals being able to run a single model distributed across multiple nodes, and that's up and running now. So thanks so much, Brian, for being on this call.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, you're being very modest, Brian. Speaking of that, reason I had a chance to chat earlier this week, and reason, do you want to quickly share
Sure.
the
Quick summary of what.
and then I'll put the link in the chat that I can put in the minutes for how folks can join Quai, because I did that myself. It's a very quick process.
Fantastic. Okay, so Quai is a non-profit AI lab. We've got three broad work streams, all in the service of democratizing AI. The first work stream we call Tools. It's basically a development work stream where we're developing a decentralized AI infrastructure to make AI safer, faster, and greener. Okay, so that's on its own a an ambitious feat. The second work stream is a research work stream we call fundamental AI. We feel that there are some deep research needs to make AI better than it is now. And the last group is the policy group, which is looking at AI trust. It's looking at regulatory uh, initiatives, all to make AI more aligned with human values. So it's a 920 member group at the moment. We're in the midst of a merger and acquisition with another organization. So that'll increase our size maybe an order of magnitude. So it's becoming a big deal with a global footprint.
Excellent. And for folks that are going to IW next week, Riza, you'll be at VRM Day the day before
Yeah.
the conference. Yeah, I'll be
Yeah,
there
I'd
too.
like to meet you all in person if you're there. I see Kevin Triplett's already a Quai member. Hey, Kevin. Brian Ragazzi, of course. And then last week we had Mitch Travers on the call. He's a Quai member. And Aaron, Rob Aaron, he's a member as well. He's on this call. So thanks so much for participating. I'm looking forward to seeing you all at Project VRM Day. And Doc
Super.
Searles, you know Doc Searles, he's our
Yeah,
chief intention officer. So great.
yeah, fantastic. Scott, go ahead. You have your hand up.
So does it cost to join Quai? Because on the website, it seems like it does.
No, it's free. If you want to join as a corporate member, yeah. If your corporation wants to have a seat at the table, at the moment for individuals, it's free.
Got it.
Yeah. And it's a very simple sign up process. Like I said, I did it earlier this week. Excellent. Okay. Just a quick check. Anyone else? Is there anyone else who would like to do an introduction? Or we'll dive into things. All right, let's go ahead and dive into things. So we always want to leave a little time at the outset for any announcements, any news that you want to share with the whole group. We'd like to keep it sort of headline level. Links are appreciated, but always want to check in and see if there's anything besides Jonathan's posted his the article he wrote about first person white paper. Thank you again, Jonathan. Anyone else? Anything they want to put up? All right. That's cool. All right. So quick review of our agenda here. It's a little way they window. I'm going to try and pull this in so we get a little bit more. Okay. Our main thing we're going to talk about two new task forces that the suggestion has been, hey, let's go ahead and start forming those task forces so that they can sort of begin their work in parallel with what we're going to be covering in the balance of the session today, which is starting right into risk assessment and harms prevention. Scott and Nikki will, the majority of today will be that. But first, we're going to talk about the formation of credentials task force, RCARDS task force. So those are our three main agenda items for today. Is there any, I always check and see, is there any revisions or additions to the agenda, folks that are here? We're always trying to be flexible enough to make sure if there's an urgent topic, we can fit it on there. But if there's not, we'll go ahead and dive in. These first two should be fairly quick. And then Scott, we're going to give you and Nikki the rest of the time. All right, so credentials task force, I'll pop over here to our homepage, which, no, that's the bio. Oh, I should mention that. Yeah, actually, we do have, for anyone that's just joined us, a bio page. If you want to share information about yourself, I'll put a link in there, bio page. That you can just add a little bio in there so folks can understand who else is involved here with the task force. Now, what I was going to show was here on our homepage, which I will link in here in the chat. Actually, that's the I'll back out that last part, just take you straight to that. On our homepage, we have structures. We do keep track as we form task forces. We keep a table of the task forces and a table of the deliverables that we're after. So if I go down to this task force table, these are proposals, and we have agreed on the previous meeting. We're already going to get started with risk assessment, harms prevention. That's what you'll hear about from Scott and Nikki today. What we're going to discuss now is the next two on the list, forming the credentials task force and the RCARDS task force. Now, I just point out for anyone that's new, discussion, the two credentials we're focused on, personal credentials and verifiable relationship credentials, have their own pages here in our branch of the wiki. So it's very easy. If you go to the homepage, you can just, I do have actually some cross links. I haven't fully cross-linked everything yet. And then there is also a separate page on RCARDS. So if these are new concepts for you, you can get all the background about them here. And of course, the credentials also involve zero knowledge proof, cryptography, and the privacy preserving personas. That's part of the key management and DID management involved with these credentials. So you can see that the quick high level summaries of what we're proposing these two task forces are about. I'm going to ask Jeff Turk, who's I know interested in the credentials task force. Jeff, do you want to share any perspective on the work you want to get started there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Drummond. Specifically for the Credentials Task Force, it's related to the Linux Foundation project that we've started under FPP, and we're getting close to the stage of where we need to start defining PHCs and VRCs specifically for the scope of that project, but also thinking longer term to what that should look like as we widen out the universe of where these credentials will be circulating. So it's really to get that process started and finding others that will want to be part of that work and to help define it. The more the merrier. But yeah, that's sort of where we are at the moment. Just trying to get that ball rolling. Very simply looking at probably using W3C verifiable credentials as sort of the baseline to get that piece of the work going.
Perfect. Jeff, for folks that may not be as close to it, can you just give a brief so he mentions the LF kernel project, but I think it's important for folks on this task force to understand we are not, anywhere over in theory land here. We have some very short-term deliverables to implement as quickly as we can for what I think is incontestably the world's single most valuable open source project, the Linux kernel. We were quite surprised when the Linux Foundation, asked us to begin with that project. But Jim Zemlin, the executive director's logic was they already have a web of trust. It's in GPG, GNU Privacy Guard, and they're not really. It's not modern. It's all based on PGP, original key sharing. It is open source, but it's not very well maintained. We've discovered, and they want us to replace it. And this is an ongoing project. Jeff, you want to give a quick summary of what we're tackling that project and where we want to go with it?
Yeah, basically what we're aiming to do with that project is to replace the current PGP web of trust that they have that's not really going to scale properly for them into the first person approach where we have verifiable relationship credentials, personhood credentials that can be issued by an institution like the Linux Foundation. Initially to the kernel maintainers, and then spreading out further in the ecosystem to kernel devs, contributors, and I think the ultimate goal for them is the whole open source software movement. The sort of impetus for this is to prevent against supply chain attacks, which is a pretty well-known problem in the open source community right now, where rogue code gets introduced into popular open source packages. The belief is that can be more properly mitigated if we actually have webs of trust that are ripple throughout the open source community. So that's sort of what's spearheading the whole initiative by the Linux Foundation. And yeah, the project is to initially focus on the PGP, I should say the Linux Foundation PGP Web of Trust for the kernel maintainers. And that's what we've started to work on now. Thus the sort of burning need to start defining PHCs and VRCs sooner rather than later, specifically for that project.
There you have it. Any questions so I'll explain more about the process of forming a task force in a second, but any questions for Jeff about that quote burning need?
I've got a question just because I'm relatively new. Are there a lot of coding engineers who have started on this work? Are there code repositories that everybody's pitching into? Is there a need to recruit more people to actually write the code? Like what's helpful there?
On the coding front, we have, well, it's a very small team right now. Essentially, there's one person that's working on it at the moment. We are looking for somebody that could help port the zero knowledge proof sort of academic code into something more usable within a practical setting. But that's actually still being defined right now. But we do have some work already started it's going to be a CLI tool, command line interface tool that they can use alongside their existing workflow. And that's sort of where we've started at the moment.
If you want to share any information about the kind of people that would be helpful and what you could use, I'm happy to try to draw on my network, or even see if the Google people who did their open source CKP library would want to help out.
Oh, okay, that's terrific. Yeah, we don't actually have documented yet sort of what we're looking for. It's sort of ideas in my head and Drummond's head and one other person's head, but that's something we can do, and be glad to share that with you, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, super. Thanks for offering, Jonathan. So, if there are no other questions about that, let me explain again for folks that may be new to this practice of task forces at Trust over IP. The official organizational forum of Joint Development Foundation projects at Trust over IP, and those are the projects that undertake specifications. The legal construct is a working group, and we are a chartered working group inside the Trust RFP project under LF Decentralized Trust. And that's where our intellectual property commitments are to, Creative Commons and W3C patent and Apache 2.0 for any source code. We introduced, when we started Trust RFP, a practice of saying, hey, working groups, if they choose, can self-organize task forces. Again, it's not an official thing, but we make it a procedural thing so that it's easy for task, it's just lets working groups move quickly, self-organize for around their deliverables and the work they need to do. So we do have basically an internal policy to say, if you want a task force, your one requirement is to create a task force page, a home page for the task force, and it just goes here in our tree. We haven't officially formed any yet, so it just is going to be a page in the tree here under our home page. I will take the action item to create because I've done it a number of times. I will create the template for that. Actually, what I'll do is I'll help create. I'll work with Jeff to help create the one for the credentials task force, and then I would ask the leads of the other task forces to then. Actually, I could create the template pages for all three. It's a very quick process, and then have them go in and fill out what they would like to have for that task force, and then to quote, join a task force, first of all, you can just come to the meetings. If you're a member of this working group, you can be active in any task force. But if you want to add your name to the list there, so it's visible that you're part of that task force, all you do is go to the wiki and do that. If you're not yet signed up with an account for the wiki, there is a section up here on the wiki under the education section. I think it's this. Oh, that's interesting. Something got moved around there. I'll find it. I'll publish in the notes. There is a page that explains how to get signed up to use the wiki. So we will create a task force page for that. Now, quickly, our cards is covered down here. I'll go actually. I'll run this window. No, this window. I'll go to the R cards page. So one of the key distinguishing features when you're creating verifiable relationships, I'll actually pull it down to the picture so we can all see this. As you create the we'll call the personal private channel between any two parties, the personal applies when it's involving people, obviously. That is then sets up the ability to issue the verifiable relationship credentials in both directions. Because that's generally all machine readable information, for the humans, we need the term that we've evolved over multiple years is relationship cards, to get to the sense it's not just a business card, and it can be it's basically a very simple publish subscribe relationship, because the author can update the card, can change the cards they're sharing with the contact, and of course both the credentials and the R cards are directional. You share with the other party, they share with you. And so because it's not a verifiable credential, it's a shared signed data object. We also want to, establish the interoperability standards for that. So that's the essence of what the purpose of the R cards task force. I know there's some other folks here that I'm not going to ask them to speak to right now, but are very focused on, okay, what will be the not just technical interoperability, but also the usability of this new way of forming and establishing and sharing relationship data. So that's the essence of what we're after with that task force. Again, I will help create the page for that. And that's all the time I think we wanted to spend on those two, actually a little bit more. Are there any questions about those two new task forces?
That's it.
Go ahead.
That's it.
I'm
Want to put some stuff in the fridge.
Stephen,
someone.
perhaps you need to mute Stephen Milstein.
Yeah, Stephen, you probably need to.
There you
All
go,
right.
Carl.
Thanks. All right. In that case, I'm going to turn it over now, the balance of our session here to Scott and Nikki to dive into the work of this first task force, which will also have a page I'll help create it. And so, Scott, do you want to start sharing?
Yeah, okay. Nikki did show up. Okay, good. So yes, I would like to start sharing. Hold on. Okay. All right. So let's no, let me share the whole screen. That would be best because then I can pull things in and out. All right. Now you should all be seeing the risk assessment companion guide. Okay. So, the process of this task force that we've spun up in the middle of this working group session is to deal with threats, harms, risks associated with the context of what we're trying to solve here. Okay, so we're going to start to figure out, okay, what's the context of what we're trying to solve here? What are the ecosystem? Because that will drive a lot of things for the working group in general. But it's a way to kind of drive at least the discussion of and understanding of what we within the ecosystem can do to mitigate risk. Okay, because we need to understand what are the things we can control and what are the things that potentially we cannot control, but we want to articulate. Okay, so in a risk assessment, this is why it's important for any risk mitigation type activity around governance and such. It's important to start with risk assessment and initially important to start with establishing the context. So you can see in the risk assessment process, the process of doing a risk assessment is talking about first establish context, and we're going to get into that today. I think that could be all we can get to today. And then we'll start identifying risks, analyzing them, and treating them to see, okay, what would our ecosystem do with it? Are there items that we can mitigate? Are there items that we have to treat risks differently? Or even just accept, and we'll talk about exactly what we can do or not. But right now, we're starting from a blank page, and I'm asking somebody in the audience here to start taking notes, because it's difficult for me to take notes while I am in the process of trying to drive, process here. Okay, so
I'm taking. It's all good.
yeah, and I'm very glad that Drummond, you're here, because I think you can drive a lot of the conversation. Basically, I'm facilitating a thought process here, and we're bringing in kind of just a different view of how we're attacking the problem so that we can then drive it to a justifiable result. If we don't understand what the context is, we can't communicate to relying parties what we have the ability to do. So in establishing context, okay, we're trying to figure out what are the bounds of an ecosystem. Okay, we start there. It's like, it's going back to Genesis and in the Bible. We're creating something here, or we're identifying the boundaries of what we're talking about. Okay, we have to start there. And to me, it's a little kludgy. I don't have clarity personally. I think Drummond sees it a lot clearer probably than most, but we need to get that identified. And so I see that Nikki, you also wanted to make some initial comments or tell everybody that I was wrong and where I'm coming from. So
Go ahead, Nikki.
I just I wanted to take a little step back and just perhaps use this time to go through the charter and
okay.
think about a couple of like the timeline and milestones and some of the options for blending the kind of human harm, socio-technical side of things with the risk assessment approach. So I did actually, before I saw your agenda, Drummond, I did actually prepare a draft charter page.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent.
so
It's here on the list. I didn't see that. You
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
I do have it. I have it posted.
typically typically it was I was heading towards the deadline of 4 p.m. here in the UK.
all good. This is exactly what we're here
Would
for.
would that be okay, Scott? And then, the landscaping exercise that you're talking about, like what are we dealing with? Who are the actors and their roles? What are the entities? And what are the boundaries of the ecosystem? That and maybe aspects of the threat landscape around that. That's
Mhm.
kind of our first step, maybe once we've
Yes.
agreed some of the basics. Does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely. So I have the charter up. If you want, do you want to walk through it?
Well, this is really just gathered from other documents. So yeah, let's maybe step through it. I adapted the mission from what you'd put in the homepage of the working group. So
Yeah,
uh,
it looks like you put some kind of commitment on getting this risk assessment done by January.
yeah, exactly. So, one of the thoughts I had on this, I don't know about you, Scott, but when I'm working in, with my sleeves rolled up in the real world, this is an iterative and continual process. And one of the important outputs from the working group is business requirements, and maybe technical requirements that go into the other task forces. So I was wondering what the group thought about potentially doing kind of, so we've got essentially 3 months, obviously with holidays in that period. But I wondered if we did if we thought about milestones like in October doing the landscaping and context setting and earlier identification of those key risks, and then went into kind of monthly cycles of delivering our latest insights based on the work we were doing in the group into the other task force. What do you guys think?
So a couple things. One is I guess in some aspect, we have to separate two things. One is that we're doing a risk assessment for the entire ecosystem.
Uh-huh.
And in doing the risk assessment, at the end of the risk assessment, we will have categories of requirements that we need to develop to address the risks we're choosing to mitigate. Okay, so once we reach that, then there should be, at that point, that would be input to the second part of this task force, which is we will have identified certain risks that are harms and threats related risks that this task force chooses to then get into the next level and create those requirements about. So, I do think that that's probably a two-step process at minimum. One, the first step will set up for all task forces to define their requirements to address the risk. And I do believe we should be able to get to that point in probably 6 weeks. Okay. And then we can start working on developing these requirements, which will have, and then the requirements will go into all the other task forces and they'll come up with their milestones and planning of how long it'll take to ferret out those requirements.
I want to say
Yeah.
something quick. The suggestion of the time frame for a public review draft came from me carrying out my action item from the last meeting when it was requested that we add to the main page our table of deliverables an anticipated time frame, so folks had a sense. So I just took the classic, swag, wild ass guesses as to what might be feasible. So there's no hammer sitting over saying, "Hey, we got to do this." That should be a decision of the task force. What's a reasonable period of time? So I just wanted to get that out there, and this discussing the process of sequence operations is exactly what a task force usually starts out doing.
Right. So to get a better estimate of how long it'll take to complete the risk assessment matrix, it's a factor of complexity, a factor of time, and a factor of engagement. It's just things that need to get done, and so if we use this time or we get other time, or how do we figure out how to work asynchronously? I think I can't give you a gauge until we've had at least maybe the context discussion to see how that goes. Because I've been in different risk assessment processes where there's a lot of, people bring a lot to the table. And yet when they bring things to the table, are they all aligned, or we're still, all over the place? I mean, this process is supposed to be collaborative. And there's and it requires discussion and wrenching and collaboration and compromise and all these kinds of things. Some things are easier to pass. I think the context discussion can happen in one session. But as we get into the risks and all these kinds of things, it takes a life of its own. But what happens is the more dialogue that happens up front, the more refined and better the requirements are down the road, because you've already kind of wrestled and you've identified the risks in a way that you can then target specific requirements, and everyone is educated on what to do. So I'd say here's the deal. I would like, and I think it's probably the collaborative desire to get the risk assessment done before everybody goes on holiday break. And I'd like to see whatever we can do to get that done. And that means up until probably mid-December at latest. Hopefully before the first week of December, we could have, at least a risk assessment that then we can hand off, to individual task forces to say, here's your groups of requirements for you to go. Here's your mantra, here's your action set. Here's the risks. Go ahead and come up with requirements to mitigate them.
So,
So Russ,
well, first, Russ, you have your hand up, and then I was going to ask Nikki to share her thoughts about how that dovetails with harms prevention. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, Scott, I was 100% thinking December 15th. So that you read my mind on that. I was wondering, kind of like a general question, just for this project in the group, are there small grants that can kind of help corral people's focus and energize these task force so we don't, because I love the collaboration. I also love having the focus of a team that has this as a priority, and sometimes money can help. Obviously, we're not here for money, but it's like I could imagine that could be a fuel. So I don't know if that exists or if there's thoughts about that for like small grants to keep things powered.
yeah. Well, I'll defer a little bit to Drummond, but the nature of the work that we've done for the last 5 years in trust over IP, it is voluntary, and we haven't had any grants per se driving that. In the past, we were funded, and now we're funded by the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. So there really won't be, not for me and not for Nikki and not for Drummond, money, going. Now, here's the thing, once we establish some things, there will be organizations that will want to take the model, because right now we're looking to create a model. And there may be organizations like the First Person Project that will want to take this and drive it and get very specific to the context that they're driving. That may be a funded scenario.
Yeah, I have my hand up to just quickly say, as I think many of you know, I'm driving full time on the First Person Project to obtain funding for what our white paper makes very clear is a digital network cooperative. And if we're successful, we definitely would like to be in the position of helping provide those small grants to advance the work, all the work that needs to be done across the space. Very significant chunks of that need to happen here. It would be, as Scott said, there are typically in efforts like this, all volunteer efforts, most of the people working on it are either funded by a corporate entity that has an interest in the work, or they're freelancers that that are participating in the work because it's part of their job or the services that they offer to have expertise on those things. So everyone has their motivations to do it. In this particular case, where we want to go with this work. We're going to know fairly shortly whether we're able to get the funding we're seeking for the First Person Project. And if so, yes, we'll be in a position, we want to be able to help move this forward. But I just wanted to share that. I can't make any promises to anything, and it won't be a trust RP or LFDT. They typically, sometimes they can, if companies want it enough, they can fund projects within LFDT. Within LF projects, there's a mechanism for that, but I think it's fairly rare, and it's usually for coding projects. But to have entities that are part of it fund work on it is more common, and I can just speak for where we're trying to go with First Person Project. Riza, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, briefly, Quai has historically provided grants for development. We do it through hackathons. This year we ran a hackathon, 250 entrants, and we had 10 finalists and then 3 winners. And those 3 winners got about $10,000 worth of grant funding. The way we're doing it in the future is also through hackathons. And we've been donated $1 million worth of crypto. Okay, we're scared about crypto, but so there's a coin that we will be donating, we'll be using to fund ongoing development. It's an interesting mechanism, especially for this particular project in the decentralized world. There appears to be a lot of funding in the Web3 world for decentralized projects. So we just have to look for it. I know that's probably our circle of friends here in this world is not the same circle as the sort of crypto bros, but we're starting to get closer, and I think there's an opportunity for that vast pool of funding to find a home here for good causes. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think it doesn't have to all be volunteer hours, tired hours, and time between jobs. I think there's an opportunity for real funding. Okay.
Very cool. Thanks, Riza. Um,
Okay.
Nikki, I'm calling on you for your thoughts about how you see the harms prevention work thread of the task force intersecting or intertwining with what Scott's proposing for the risk assessment phase.
Thanks, Drummond. Yeah, I should firstly apologise to the group. Scott and I didn't have a chance to catch up before this call, and I only turned my attention to, thinking it through properly today. So, there are some very concrete ways in which um, the human harm stuff can intersect with the risk assessment process, which I know pretty well. I've used it with a UNICEF project, also in trust over IP, and it did work very well. Scott has already put like human harm risks on his assessment profile, but one thing that we found from the white paper and the work that we did on the framework was, and the practical guide, is that you could do a differentiated risk assessment. So I've actually been using this in a European project where which is to do with local digital twins. And for each risk, you not only have the role that's impacted, but you also have the primary stakeholder impacted, be it a citizen user or an ecosystem level risk and so forth. So I think there's some simple additions or adaptations that we can do. But for the human harm stuff, I was drawing on some research and something we did alongside a hackathon in recently, which is a social design process. So it's a bit different from the spreadsheet. It's to do with participatory events, focusing on persona, fictional storytelling design techniques, and a very iterative process that builds to your deliverables through collaboration with stakeholder groups. So this is my thinking at the moment, is that we would unearth and understand the implications, and not just the harms, but the kind of, the light side. If you do this will not only prevent harms, it'll really boost benefits. So genuine requirements. And I'm hoping that what we'd be able to do in this group is, obviously with the background work, is develop a sort of pack that you could take and do social design jams with different groups of stakeholders and feed the learnings back into the whole. So this is a very interactive and kind of respects not just the social design, but the socio eco design, the considerations of the world around us and the natural world and the implications of lots of data processing, for example, and relationships that are more entangled in kind of different cultures with different elements of the natural world. So through that a very structured methodology, we'd be able to unearth the human harms and then add them to the risk register. So rather than it being regular meetings, although we'll take 10 minutes at the end of risk assessment sort of thing, it would be us going out into the world, and hopefully by Christmas we'd be able to develop something you could run with your family at home over the Christmas period, as you're digesting your mince pies and roast turkey. Any thoughts or questions?
I have some thoughts. So,
Go ahead, Scott.
so I think based on what I'm hearing, we need to kind of separate the risk assessment from the threats and harms, because the risk assessment affects everything. Okay. It affects the hardware requirements, the business requirements, the arms requirements, all of the, all of the requirement categories are affected by a ecosystem risk assessment. And I think if we just combine this task force to just include threats and harms, I think that it'll get biased, it'll get skewed, and it also is, not necessarily, it's not necessarily should be combined, because they're really separate. They're separate activities that are happening now. The threats and harms that I think Nikki can drive for this ecosystem are things that are unique, that we need that input, but they're very specific to threats and harms, as she describes, that are outside the ecosystem. The effective, how does this ecosystem thrive in the world? Okay. And those are absolutely critical, and we need input, and they're going to be added to the risk, but they're also just risks, just like any other risks that have to be identified. And so, my view is, we need to get the risk assessment done, and then it's that task force is over. Okay. Well, it's over, and then we will have to come back to it to validate whether we're doing the right work to address the risks, but it'll be like a pop-up. Annually we could review the risks, and we can validate and identify if we, how well is the ecosystem set, do we have residual risks after we, have identified all of these requirements that we have in there. So that's a very defined process, where I think the other aspect of this combination has a different, lifetime. Okay. So that's, and combining that and forcing, maybe different methodologies and things like that to kind of just get driven together could drive this off a very, what I thought would be, just a process path. Get it done, get all the collaboration associated with it.
Right.
Because we're going to spend time derailing on the conversation of a risk assessment to bringing in all these factors, where the process, if it's clean, can get done, and then allow all of that discussion to happen within certain requirements, task forces to kind of get through.
Yeah, okay. That leads me to a suggestion, but I see Jonathan has his hand up, and we just have 5 minutes left. So Jonathan, go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, even having this discussion early is really important. I might suggest that there is a question of the intended audience and purpose of any of these risk assessments. I can see one that's a risk assessment for us of what are the risks of this project going wrong. And that to me is thinking about threat actors, thinking about weaknesses in the model, how to make sure that this doesn't create something that creates worse harms downstream. The broader thing that Nikki is talking about, I do think is really important, but for a different audience, which is persuading the world that this is a good way to do things. And in that case, I liked what you were saying about thinking about the bright path, that rather than just looking at this as what are the risks of harm from adding this to the world, could we also talk about how this helps to reduce current harms? Like if anybody has seen the recent article about the US seizing $15 billion worth of cryptocurrency from pig butchering scams, being able to articulate really clearly, we're not talking about a perfect current state that this project might harm. There are current harms that are unmitigated that this might be able to help with. And to the point about not getting bogged down, we might be able to do those two things a little bit in parallel of like, make sure we don't create new risks that will discredit the software. We've got to get that right from the beginning. But then the kind of public, we've considered the harms, these are the benefits, this is why you should buy into it, are going to be vital if this scales up.
Yeah, I do agree. So go
So I
ahead.
can't answer the question of who's the audience of a risk assessment. Okay. I just want to say that because I think it's important. Two things. It's the first audience is us. Okay. Like I said, we need to define scope of and drive what are the what are the actions that we need to take. So we're trying to get a project which has many different facets, okay, organized in a way that we could actually demonstrate action against. At the end of the day, we want to create a governance framework model set with requirements that we have the ability to actually affect. Okay. And the ones that we can affect, we can identify them, in a variety of ways and note that we can't affect that. Okay. So that's part of what we're trying to do. Eventually, at the end of the day, a risk assessment, the audience is for anyone, participants within an ecosystem and outside the ecosystem to view and then help understand what the scope of the ecosystem is, okay, and what they're trying to do. So it's the first step of creating reliance and trustworthiness of an ecosystem. And part of it is have you identified all the risks that may be affecting what you're trying to do and driving the requirements process to mitigate them. And that's a fundamental step in really, educating ourselves and educating the world outside that wants to rely on what we're doing.
Yep. Okay. So we have 1 minute left. Jonathan, your hand is still up. Did you have something else to say or just? Okay. Here's my suggestion. This has been a good conversation about the, sort of scope of this potential task force. Scott and Nikki, would you be willing to offline have a a meeting of the minds as to should it be one task force or two? And whichever way you come out, then go ahead and fill out the charter pages for, if it's one, then fill out sort of the work plan you propose, how to divide up the work so that we have a consistent view of it that we'll look at the start of the next meeting. And if it's two, which is fine, then just do the charter pages for the two of them and the work plan you propose. And either way, it's fine. But I want to remind everyone, we're not meeting next week because of IIW. So our next meeting will be in 2 weeks. I will be in Spain, so I think timing wise, it should be in the evening. Everything should work. So Scott and Nikki, is that action item? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Of course.
Excellent. All right. So thank you, everyone. I know we're at time here today, and we'll have clarity. We'll start the next meeting with that, the conclusions that Scott and Nikki have come to. And then also I'll work with Jeff and anyone interested in the RCARS task force to turn around and fill out those charter pages. And then we can sort of see what the work plan is across either those three or those four task forces. And again, that will be in 2 weeks. Everyone coming to IEW or VRM Day or the Agentic Internet Workshop on Friday of next week, I will see you all there, and hopefully we'll have some sessions on these topics. We'll definitely be calling one to introduce the Decentralized Trust Graph Working Group to folks at IEW. So looking forward to it. Thanks very much, and we'll see you here in 2 weeks. And
Thanks,
I'll,
Drummond. Bye.
yeah, really
Thanks
appreciate
all.
it. There's, of course, the APAC meeting tonight. We'll summarize this for everyone there. Just for anyone who does care to come to both meetings, that's at 6 o'clock Pacific.
See you on
and-
Monday.
Yeah, excellent. Reza, we'll see you then. All
Okay,
right.
bye.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.